Colby says, "Well, I'm going to invite you to the next concert." Lucasta says, "The next that you want to go to yourself." Colby says, "And perhaps you'll let me tell you beforehand about the program or the things I want to hear. I'll play you the themes so you'll recognize them. Better still, I'll play you the gramophone records." Lucasta says, "I'd rather you played me bits yourself and explained them. We'll begin my education at once." Colby says, "I suspect that it's you who are educating me." Lucasta says, "Colby, you really are full of surprises. I've never met a man so ignorant as you. Yet, knowing so much that one wouldn't suspect. Perhaps that's why I like you." Colby says, "That's not quite the reason." Lucasta says, "Oh, so you believe that I like you? I didn't know that you were so conceited." Colby says, "No, it's not conceit. The reason that I'm thinking of, it's something quite simple." Lucasta says, "Then I wish you'd tell me, because I don't know." Colby says, "The first time we met, and you were trying very hard to give a false impression, and then you came to see that you hadn't succeeded." Lucasta says, "Oh, so I was trying to give a false impression? What sort of impression was I trying to give?" Colby says, "That doesn't really matter, but for some reason you thought I'd get a false impression anyway. You preferred it to be one of your own creation, rather than wait to see what happened. I hope you didn't mind. I know it sounds impertinent." Lucasta says, "Well, there's one thing you haven't learnt yet, and that is to know when you're paying a compliment. That was a compliment, and a very clever one." Colby says, "I admit that at first I was very bewildered by you and B." Lucasta says, "Oh, by me and B?" Colby says, "Only afterwards, when I had seen you a number of times, I decided that was the only your kind of self-defense." Lucasta says, "What made you think that it was self-defense?" Colby says, "Because you couldn't wait to see what happened. You're afraid of what would happen if you left things to themselves. You jump because you're afraid of being pushed. I think that you're brave, and I think that you're frightened. Perhaps you've been very badly hurt at some time, or at least there may have been something in your life to rob you of any sense of security." Lucasta says, "And I'm sure you have that, the sense of security." Colby says, "No, I haven't either." Lucasta says, "There, I don't believe you. What did I think till now? Oh, it's strange, isn't it? That as one gets to know a person better, one finds them in some ways very like oneself, in unexpected ways, and then you begin to discover differences inside the likenesses. You may feel insecure in some ways, but your insecurity is nothing like mine." Which is one of the things if a person gets into tarot, is that tarot, every card refers to you. Every card refers to other created beings. Every card refers to creation in general. Every card refers to God, if you can only make the connections. Colby says, "In what way is it different?" Lucasta says, "It's hard to explain. Perhaps it's something that your music stands for. There's one thing I know. When you first told me what a disaster it was in your life, when you found that you'd never been a good musician, of course, I didn't know whether you were right. For all I can tell you may have been mistaken, and perhaps you could be a very great musician, but that's not the point. You'd convince yourself, and you felt that your life had all collapsed, and that you must learn to do something different. So you applied for Eckerson's position and made up your mind to go into business and be someone like Claude, or B. I was sorry, very sorry for you. I admired your courage in facing facts, or the facts as you saw them, and yet, all the time, I found I envied you, and I didn't know why, and now I think I know. It's awful for a man to have to give up a career that he's set his heart on, I'm sure, but it's only the outer world that you've lost. You've still got your inner world, a world that's more real. A world that doesn't have to deny the outer world to be as such. That's why you're different from the rest of us. You have your secret garden to which you can retire and lock the gate behind you. Well, we all do, we just don't necessarily know it. That we have our own private existence. Colby says, "And lock the gate behind me? Are you sure that you haven't your own secret garden somewhere, if you could find it?" Lucasta says, "If I could find it? No, my only garden is a dirty public square in a shabby part of London, like the one I lived in for a time with my mother. I've no garden. I hardly feel that I'm even a person. Nothing but a bit of living matter floating on the surface of the Regent's Canal. Floating, that is." Floating, that's it. Our existence. It's more than just we inhabit. But if we identify too much with it, we can also think that we're not human, Much in the same way that we realize that the body is a vessel. Colby says, "You're very much a person. I'm sure that there is a garden somewhere for you, for anyone who wants one as much as you do." Lucasta says, "And your garden is a garden, where you hear a music that no one else could hear, and the flowers have a scent that no one else could smell." Colby says, "You may be right up to a point, and yet it's not quite real to me, although it's as real to me as this world. But that's just the trouble. They seem so unrelated." I turn the key and walk through the gate, and there I am, alone in my garden. Alone, that's the thing. That's why it's not real. I think, that Eckerson's garden is more real than mine. Lucasta says, "Eckerson's garden? What makes you think of Eckerson? Of all people?" Colby says, "Well, he retires to his garden, literally, and also in the same sense that I retire to mine. But he doesn't feel alone there, and when he comes out, he has marrows, or beetroot, or peas, for Miss Eckerson." Lucasta says, "Are you laughing at me?" Colby says, "I'm being very serious." Then the world outside it. If you have two lives, which have nothing whatever to do with each other, well, they're both unreal. But for Eckerson, his garden is a part of one single world. Lucasta says, "But what do you want?" Colby says, "Not to be alone there. If I were religious, God would walk in my garden, and that would make the world outside it real and acceptable, I think." Lucasta says, "You sound awfully religious. Is there no other way of making it real to you?" Colby says, "It's simply the fact of being alone there that makes it unreal." Well, identifying as if you're alone. Lucasta says, "Can no one else enter?" Colby says, "It can't be done by issuing invitations. They would just have to come, and I should not see them coming. I should not hear the opening of the gate. They would simply be there suddenly, unexpectedly, walking down an alley. I should become aware of someone walking with me. That's the only way I can think of putting it. Lukatsa says, how afraid one is of being hurt. Colby says, it's not the hurting that one would mind, but the sense of desolation afterwards.